Welcome to another Metal Temple magazine interview. This time I have Barbara from Empress here. How do you feel, Barbara?
I'm doing really great. How are you?
I'm good. I'm really happy to have you here, and I'm really feel really excited to do that interview with you because there's plenty of reason to talk with you. Let's first start a little bit with you. Last 2 years were not easy for any artist, so we did have the pandemic. Also, you in US, you did have the pandemic. It started actually at a very bad moment for you because you just formed the band, I think 2018, and so you started releasing singles, and then was the pandemic. 2022 shows started here in Europe in around spring. So how does this restart feel for a musician? Are you really ready to go?
Oh yeah, no, I've been ready. It's a long time coming, and it was one of those things where, like as you mentioned, we all were affected by it, but sitting and waiting was very difficult, especially when you're very excited, you want to share all this stuff that you have with the world. So it feels so great to look around and not just be playing shows, but be seeing shows and seeing other musicians going back
Mm.
out. It just, like you said, it feels like everything is like come back to life.
Yes, I believe you, Empress did already have a few live shows
Yeah.
since restart. Yes. How many did you have? Did
So
you have already a
since
tour?
Yes, I think we played about two or three shows since
Okay.
the start of this year.
So how was the atmosphere then? Was it different compared to the pre-pandemic times? Was there more excitement, or how was it?
Yeah, I feel like it was interesting because, some people were certainly still a little bit hesitant to come back out, but I think that the people who have been attending shows and people who have been coming out more and more, there's just such a readiness and such a hunger from them to see live music and to be part of that again. So, as a performer, it's amazing to see.
What I notice when I go to live shows is that after the restart, venues are not overly crowded. It's getting there slowly. Did you notice the same, or was it crowded at any time?
Yeah, I definitely have noticed, like when I've been attending shows, that I feel like it's not as crowded, like you mentioned, as it was before. But what's interesting is that some of the underground metal shows, I almost feel like there's more people. People,
Okay.
I think, maybe who wanted to check it out before, but like they were hesitant for whatever reason, or they were just always like, "Oh, I'll catch the next show." When that was taken away from them, now that they have the chance to go, they're like, "I'm not missing this." So that's been interesting to see.
Right. It seems to be that the festivals were not affected at all. So I think it was crowded as always. It was sold out as always. And I think all people had a good time. Let's talk a little bit about Empress. Empress were formed in 2018. And it was formed by you both guitarists, by Vlad and Joseph. So what was the idea behind forming Empress?
Yeah, so when those guys, the three of them started, it was kind of, well, in Philadelphia, the city that we're from, the music that we make is not very popular. Actually, we're the only band of our kind. So this band was kind of started by Vlad because he had a desire to kind of create this symphonic power metal that he couldn't readily find in the scene. He had invited Marc and Joe over to jam, and when the three of them started playing, they realized that they had something that they wanted to expand upon. They tried out a bunch of different vocalists. When they brought me in for an audition, at that point, I think they were like, okay, this is starting to sound more and shape more like what we wanted to go for. And then bringing Nick with his influences kind of went that way too. So I feel like Empress was interesting in that they didn't necessarily start it with a defined goal. It kind of was a happy accident the way everything kind of turned out.
Um, you raised a good point. From the outside, US is not really the biggest symphonic metal country in the world. So, so how do you guys come to symphonic metal?
I think that each of us, it's funny, me and Vlad are definitely the two in the band who have
Mm,
a lot of love for the genre.
right.
Both of us have been listening to it for years. I feel like Marc, Joe, and Nick kind of got more introduced to it through us,
Hmm.
but they had bands that they loved too. Like Marc had loved Camelot. Nick came into this knowing some of the scene, like Symphony X and that kind of thing. So I think that yeah, I feel like me and Vlad were definitely the two with the symphonic metal background that really pushed for that.
Right. You didn't waste any time after you all were then together, so you started then right after releasing singles. I think in 2019 was, I think, Black Arcana, Beyond the Sleep, and Legion. I think there was a little bit of a break. What happened in 2020?
Yeah, so it was funny. Our goal was we released the 3 singles, which were actually demos. We
Mhm.
put those out there to kind of introduce ourselves to the world, but the intention was always to re-record them and release them on the album. And that album was supposed to be recorded around February of 2020.
Okay.
So yeah, so that was immediately when we got the news that the world was shutting down. And at the same time, I actually had some health issues that were unrelated to COVID that left me immunocompromised, and same with Vlad. So we all kind of agreed that, to do our part, we were going to just stay home. We still wrote songs and we still spoke, every day as a band, but we didn't get together to rehearse probably not till like the
Right.
fall when we felt very certain, like, okay, this feels safe, but we're gonna like keep it contained to the band. Um, so yeah, so that's basically what happened was coronavirus got in the way in a very big way. But then I think it was a good thing because it gave
Mm,
us time to work on songwriting and I think kind of come up with a more cohesive sound that translated into 2021 when we started getting to record.
right. Your plans were actually to release the album basically in 2020 already, and then it got
Yes.
all the plans got crashed because of Corona.
Yeah.
Interesting. Let's talk a little about you and about your career. When did you start singing? How did you come to metal?
Yeah, honestly, I've been, I know a lot of singers say this, but I feel like I've been singing as long as I could speak. And I around like the age of 15 or so is when I started taking classical music lessons. Um, and then, I always loved metal. I was always primarily a metalhead first, but I just loved the way classical singing sounded and I wanted to do that. I actually got some vocal cord nodules right as I was getting ready to go into conservatory because I had laryngopharyngeal reflux. So basically, it wasn't because of poor technique, but rather just something out of my control at the time. So I took a break from singing for 3 years.
Okay.
Eventually decided to get back into it, and at that point, it was too late to go to conservatory or continue with my classical music studies. So I was like, well, I've always loved metal, and I feel like I can probably experiment more and do more in this genre than I could previously. I have nothing to lose, so I'm just gonna jump in head first. So
How is it when you stop singing for 3 years? Do you really then start from scratch, or does it come back quickly? How is it?
oh yeah, no, I had to completely start from scratch. I after the 3 years, and I actually didn't sing at all during those 3 years. I was so depressed about having the nodules and having to stop my music studies. I didn't even want to hum. But I think that if you're a musician or if you're a creative person, you can't stay away from it forever. It's part of you. So eventually, when I decided to get back into it, I ended up going to a voice therapist, and I did 3 months of complete voice rest where I didn't even speak. I just carried around like a notepad, and that's how I
Okay.
kind of got my ideas across to people. And at the end of that, when I went and got my throat scoped again, and they said that the nodules had been reduced to a superficial size, that I could sing on it
Mm,
again. All that work had paid off. Now I was left with like, oh boy, well, now I have to learn how to sing again. And at first it was very like, I couldn't do more than like, even just speaking, I couldn't do more than 15 minutes a day because I was so weak.
mhm.
But yeah, I just had to keep building up that stamina and in a lot of ways, I'm glad that happened because I think that it enabled me to start with like an original sound and kind of shed a lot of the old bad habits that I had before because I was just starting completely anew.
How does that work, not using your voice for 3 months?
Yeah, so I basically tried to do total voice rest, where I would just carry on a notepad or I would develop like little sign language sort of type things with people closest to me. If I had to interact with anybody that I would, necessarily or normally have to speak with, I just kind of had other people who were wonderful and kind enough to kind of translate for me during that time. And it was difficult because you don't realize I mean, I talk a lot in general,
Okay.
but definitely
That's then
you
even
realize
worse,
it.
isn't it?
Yes. It was definitely difficult, but I think it got me into new hobbies and into new
Right.
things that I wouldn't have done otherwise because I felt like I had so much extra time. So yeah, there was that.
Okay, let me guess, since when you play chess?
Yes, I do play chess.
Okay. um,
And
uh,
solitaire and all that.
okay, I see, I see. No, I was wondering how it works in, practical situations in life. So how did it work when you went to the supermarket? Did you have a pet with you? And
I like a little notepad and I would write down
okay,
on the paper and I would show it to, like, if I had to find something. Eventually there was one grocery store that I frequented that they got used to this.
okay,
So they would see me like, okay, we know what to do.
right. You mentioned that briefly. You do have a classical education.
Yes.
And that was one thing which impressed me really. You do have actually a cool rock voice, and then you have this highly pitched operatic voice. And this combination of these two, or the way how you combine it, is really special. How long did you have in classical education?
So not for very long. I'd say about like 5 years or so before I had to
Mhm.
stop.
Let's talk about Fateweaver then. So it was released in August 2022. How was the response so far?
Oh, so far we're so overwhelmed and so grateful for the response. People have said we've gotten so many wonderful, kind words, and yeah, honestly, I'm kind of speechless by the response, just because when you hold on to something for so long, you're kind of nervous to send it out
Mhm.
because you believe in the art that you make, but it's like sending a kid off on their first day of school. You get kind of nervous. You're like, I believe that you can bring home a good grade, but I'm very protective of this. And to finally put it out there and to see the people love it, to hear all the kind words, especially after having to wait for so long, it feels amazing. It really does.
And read a few reviews, and I think you came out of the review business with 9s out of 10s at least, or 10 out of 10s. I haven't seen anything below. That's really impressive, especially for a debut album, isn't it?
No, like I'm definitely it's not lost on me how fortunate we feel and how grateful we are to have received the response that we have. It's really like very, like I said, very humbling.
I also did a review on your album, and I think I gave it a 9, I think,
Mhm.
or
Yes, thank you very
a little
much.
bit better than 9. So what I said about Fateweaver, let me check this. It is symphonic metal at its best by finding a very good mix between heaviness, bombast, epic elements, and orchestral arrangement. How would you actually describe the sound on the album?
I feel like you pretty much nailed it. Honestly, I feel like we really try to strike that balance between being very heavy and very aggressive, but with more like light and airy, beautiful elements. And I feel like bombastic, like you'd said at the end there. I think that that is definitely a key component of our sound.
The vocals are typically very central in those albums and this type of music. And you have remarkable vocal range. And I think the key of that album is that your versatility keeps the sound perfectly together. What is the secret of your vocal? Well, we lifted already some secrets of your vocals, a 3 years break, but what are the secrets of your vocals?
No, thank you so much. No, that means so much to me, really. Like versatility to me is so important. I've got big creative commitment issues, so I'm not one to be tied down to one particular style. I want to have a full vocal toolkit, and I want to be able to express myself and be able to paint with any color that I choose. So that really does mean a lot to me. And so far as secret goes, I think it's just being unafraid to explore. It's more of like a mental cerebral thing. I think that some people might get into their head where they're like, well, I'm really good at this one thing, so I'm going to focus just on that. But I think people forget that they can be really great at a lot of things. And I think that part of it is, again, just being unafraid to experiment, being unafraid to try new things. I also listen to, honestly, I only listen to metal, but within metal, I listen to so many different subgenres. And I think that it's impossible for them not to all find their way in some way or another.
I had the feeling that you are one of the very few things, not everyone has this gift, I would say, and that is the ability to transport emotions. How important is that for a vocalist?
I think it's so important. I think that I can't imagine not singing with emotion. I think that that's kind of the magic of our instrument. You know what I mean? Like,
Mm.
every instrument has the ability to convey emotion to some degree, but I think it's the human instrument that's what can touch other people the most.
How does actually the songwriting process work at Empress?
So normally, I'd say Vlad is our lead songwriter. He usually will come up with like a skeleton of a song. But then from there, he usually sends it over to me, and then I write my vocal melody. And sometimes it's the reverse. Sometimes I'll send him a vocal melody. I'll, just hum something, and then he'll kind of write around that. But yeah, it's usually collaborative, I'd say, starting with like me and him, and then the rest of the band adds in their elements as well.
And I guess you write the lyrics?
Yes.
Yes. And where do you get your inspirations from when you write lyrics?
Yeah, I'd say it feels so cliche to say that the song kind of tells me what it's about, but I feel like to some degree, as I'm humming a melody, there might be some sort of thought or a word that pops in my head, and the word just won't go away. And then I kind of just start forming a sentence around that. And then I go, okay, well, this song is going to be about this. So yeah, the song kind of tells me, and I feel like I draw inspiration just from everything in life. I tend to not write about everyday life too much because I listen to music to escape. That's not to say that I won't do it one day, but for right now, at least when I'm writing, I'm kind of drawing from fantasy stories or just try to be uplifting and inspiring. So there's lots of self-empowerment that finds its way in there too.
My favorite songs from the album are Immortal, Eventide, and Black Arcana. What are yours?
I love that you said Immortal because that's also my personal favorite.
Okay.
And I haven't seen. Everyone has like their own favorites, but
Right.
I feel like it's one of those like ones that I'm not hearing as often. So I love when I do hear it. But yeah, Immortal's definitely a personal favorite of mine. As is, I'd say, Chimera. It's hard for me not to love that song, and Beyond the Sleep will always be very special to me too.
Special because of what?
I feel like it was the first song that kind of gave us like a little bit of a fan base.
Okay.
That was our first music video that we released, and it kind of started making its way in a lot of the symphonic metal groups online, and a lot of the female fronted groups and that kind of thing, and it started circulating, and it kind of grew on its own. And it was so great being like such a young fledgling band without even an album under our belt to have that song get spread around the way it did and kind of give us a fan base to start out with.
Let's come back to the album. It was produced by Vlad.
Yeah.
And then I noticed the mixing and mastering. I was listening earlier today to an old album from Bloodbath, and accidentally one of the guys from that album mixed and mastered your album, Dan Swane, at the Unisound studio. Unisound studio, probably every death metal band went in and out there. So how did that come?
Well, it's funny. I mean, I've definitely been a fan of his for a while, but the one who showed him to me years ago was Nick. Nick's been a huge fan of Dan's for years and years, and he introduced him to me, like I said, some years ago. So when it came time to find somebody to mix and master the album, Nick was like, we have to go with Dan. And then he kind of introduced him to the rest of the band. And I think when we all listened to what he'd done, it was just unanimous. We were like, there's nobody else we want to do this record besides Dan.
Is that, I don't know, we probably should ask him, is it his first symphonic metal album ever? I don't know.
I don't know if it's his first, but he did make a mention that it's definitely like one of the few.
Right. How is it working with him?
Oh, he's fantastic. He's such a sweet and friendly guy, and he's an artist in and of himself, like mixing and mastering is an art. And I think working with him was awesome because it was collaborative. Like he listened to our ideas, but he did his own thing with it as well. And he wasn't afraid to try new things. And then he also at the same time would kind of like reach into our minds and somehow pull out what we wanted it to sound like without us even having to say too much sometimes. So yeah, working with him was really just like, it was magical.
Well, actually, he's from Sweden, but I believe he nowadays lives in Germany, I think.
Oh.
Yeah, I think even not too far away from here. So, but interesting. Wow. Interesting. Let's come to videos. Videos is very important and more important in metal. You released Into the Grey and Eventide, and I think a few days ago, I think you also released a live video, Fall of Kingdoms, isn't it?
Yes.
But the first both videos, Eventide and Into the Grey, they have both strong storytelling components. It's not really the typical band plays song video. How does the video process work from, let's say, from the ideas to the shoot?
Yeah. So the person who primarily handles our videography is Vlad. So what usually ends up happening is that, you know, once we've decided on what song we want to make a video about, he'll kind of start storyboarding. And then he'll work with me because, you know, with the lyrics and all, making sure that everything kind of makes sense and flows well with it. And after we've agreed on, you know, that this storyboard works and this concept works, we'll go ahead and we'll start figuring out, like, you know, the logistics. But in terms of filming, it's also still Vlad. Like, he will be the one filming us. So he's behind the camera and in front of the camera, kind
Okay.
of running back and forth.
Okay, who's filming if he's when he's playing the guitars? I wonder.
So usually it's Marc or somebody else because the cameras can be rather
Right.
heavy.
Yeah.
So usually somebody will hold it for him.
Okay. Interesting. Especially Eventide seemed to have a very special importance for Vlad. So what is the background there? You know that?
Yeah, I feel like, you know, we've all lost people who are important to us in our life. And he's certainly no exception to that. And I think that there were certain memories that he was reliving at a time. And when he presented the song first to me, I heard the riff. It was just the riff and the solo, but when I heard it, I was like, this is grieving. This is mourning. And we never spoke about it to one another. There was never like a discussion about what the song was about. But when I presented the lyrics, he essentially kind of had that same moment of like, yes, this is what I'm feeling. So that song is very, very emotional.
Let's talk about inspirations. What inspires you in music?
Yeah, I feel like everything from fantasy, everything from, you know, fantasy novels or video games or movies, to just kind of pondering what life, specifically my own, but also how that relates to other people as well in ways that might be meaningful and inspirational to them. And then even just existentialism. I mean, I feel like inspiration, lyrically and musically, can come from many different places. And I feel like, musically speaking, gosh, I mean, bands like Epica, Nightwish, Symphony X, Darkmoor, all those kinds of bands.
How do your inspirations influence you as a musician? How does it translate then?
Yeah, I feel like as a musician, I always say I am a conglomeration of all the people who have inspired me. You know, I don't think you can escape your influences leaving their mark on you in one way or another. When I have vocal ideas or lines, there's definitely like echoes of the people and the artists who I've listened to throughout the years in there. And I think that that can be said for my bandmates too.
You mentioned the metal subgenres. Now it's getting interesting. What are the last few metal gigs you went to?
So the last one I went to, I saw Rammstein a few weeks ago. Excuse my
All right.
accent. That's I saw them a few weeks ago. Before that, gosh, I go to a lot of underground shows. So in terms of the larger acts, I saw Behemoth,
Right.
Unto Others, Arch
Right.
Enemy back in the spring.
Mhm.
I saw Monolord
Right.
back in the spring as well. Gosh, who else have I seen recently? It's hard to keep track at this point, honestly.
Okay, that many. That's great. Well, Philadelphia isn't that small, isn't it? So you probably have plenty of opportunities. Local underground bands, any recommendations?
Yeah, so we have lots of friends in the underground scene in Philly. A big one of ours is The World Without Us. And then there's also Malphus. Outside of Philly, another band who good friends of ours are Ravenous, a Canadian band, who are also fantastic. And of course, like, they're not as underground, but you have a band like Lords of the Trident, who also are amazing and fantastic and highly recommended. Yeah, those are just a few.
Right. Your top 3 metal albums are?
Ooh, top 3.
I know it's
Goodness.
always difficult.
It is. Suddenly I'm like, wait, what is music? Um, gosh, top 3 metal albums. I would say, like I said, I have commitment issues, so I know I'm going to change my mind later on. But if I had to pick some, I would say, well, one would say from Warning, watching from a distance.
Okay.
That would be top. That would be, right up there. There's a Japanese metal band called Versailles. I
All
feel like
right.
Noble would be my second one. And then I would say that my first would be, I feel like I have to represent my favorite band, and it's funny, it might come out of nowhere for some people, but maybe like Thornstar from Lord of the Lost or something like that.
All right. Okay. Interesting. It's definitely all not mainstream. Let's get personal. I do have a few questions. That is either or. You tell me what it is, either that or that. Okay?
Sure.
The first question is gym or sofa?
Oh, Jim.
Gym. Do you go regularly to the gym?
I do. I love
What
going
do you
to the
do then?
gym.
What do you do then? More cardio or more weights, or what do you do?
More weights. I love resistance training. That's like
Right.
my me time,
Okay. Okay. Dog or cat?
What was that?
Dog or cat?
Oh, a dog.
A dog. Do you have one?
I do, two of them.
Two of them. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Thriller or comedy? What do you prefer,
Oh,
thriller or comedy?
I'd say thriller.
Thriller. Do you have a favorite one or anything to recommend?
Yeah, and this also crossed into the horror genre because I'm a huge
Right.
horror buff.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
I'd say my favorite all-time horror film is John Carpenter's The Thing.
All right.
So,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay. It goes across the board here. Meat or vegan? Meat or vegan? What is it? Meat or
Meat.
vegan? Meat. Okay. Burger or spare ribs? If you say meat,
Oh,
burger or spare ribs?
how about say burger?
Burger. Okay. Cooking at home or restaurant?
I do love eating out, so I'd say restaurant.
Right. Okay. Any favorite cuisine?
Yeah, I love it's always so hard to pick one, but I really, really love
Then pick two.
Indian food.
Which one?
Indian food?
Indian food. Ah, and what else?
Mhm. And I also love like Thai cuisine.
All right. Okay. Yeah. That's also great. Great. I think I'm more in Mexican, but Indian, that's
Mm.
coming then close as well. Let's come to vacations. Sea or mountains? Sea or
Mountains.
mountains? Mountains. Are you a climber or are you a trekker?
I'd say I'm more of a walker.
Okay,
I
good.
like taking a nice leisurely walk to the woods, and I used to be more of a hiker.
Right. Any favorite locations?
Yeah, honestly, living in in the Philly area, we're really blessed because we're so close to like, so many great mountains in Pennsylvania.
Right. Okay.
So I would say, I mean, the Poconos are pretty well known around here. So I'd say that that's like one of my favorite areas.
Your top 3 vacations? What is that?
Oh, my top 3 vacations. Well, I love New England. I love
Okay.
like Boston and um, especially honestly Boston and Massachusetts, that whole area. So that's one of my favorite spots to go to. Um, I also really love the desert. I love Arizona.
All right. Okay.
So like Sedona
Mm-hmm.
specifically
Mm-hmm.
was incredible, and I can't wait to go back. And other than that, probably like, Orlando, Florida is always a good time. So
Okay, I see. Yeah, Florida is good. Yeah, I like Florida. Let's go into sports. American football or hockey?
American football.
Okay, I have no clue. Well, obviously I've seen it already, but we in Europe, we have slightly different favorite sports. Going out, theater or nightclub?
Theater.
Theater. Are you then rather the not so really the party girl, or do you also have late nights out and until the early morning?
Yeah, I'm not a big partier. I actually am fairly extroverted. Like I
Right.
like being around
Okay.
people,
Hmm.
but yeah, I feel like my bedtime's usually around 10 o'clock at night or so. So I'm
Right.
definitely not like a night owl.
No, it's not really. Yeah, I see. I see. Okay, interesting. I have one more. Brother or sister?
Huh, a sister.
Sister. You do have a sister or brother, or
Um, yes, I have two sisters.
you have two sisters? Okay, so you don't have the experience having a brother.
Right.
Would you have liked to have a brother instead of, well, two sisters, maybe one sister, one brother, or?
Yeah, no, I mean it would have been nice, but that's just I guess
But
the way things went.
yeah, yeah. Interesting. Coming back to Empress. Empress is an independent band. Are you actually looking for a label?
Oh, certainly.
Mhm.
Certainly. And there have been a few offers, but we're kind of waiting for the right one that makes
Right.
sense for us, that we feel it could be a good relationship to have.
Hmm. And as an independent band, is it just a challenge, or is it also an opportunity? Or what are the challenges and what are the opportunities?
I'd say that the challenges are obviously the optics aren't quite the same when you're our size without like a, label representation. Um, However, what's nice is that there's a hype around us that
Mhm.
kind of propels us forward, and we do work with a management team.
Right.
So having Peter Dorena and Paul Sellier as our managers, it is nice because it's like we kind of get the benefits of that, but we still retain our independence in that way.
Okay. Finally, what are the plans for the rest of the year?
Yeah. So right now, we are looking on bringing our live show to new places. Unfortunately, I can't say where those places might be, but we're looking outside of our immediate
Right.
region,
Hmm.
which will be fun.
Hmm.
Um, I cannot confirm nor deny that we may or may not be already writing Empress 2. And of course, we want to keep creating more content, more videos perhaps, things of that nature, and some other fun, exciting things for our fans to engage with. So yeah,
Right.
that's kind of the plan at the moment for
Hmm.
the rest of 2022.
Are you going to plan then a larger tour, maybe? I know that you cannot reveal that much, but
There might be something in 2023 that's a
right.
larger scale thing.
Right. Okay, I see. I wish you good luck with it. So, is there anything what you would like to tell your fans or the viewers of Metal Temple magazine?
Yeah. So, once again, as I said before, thank you so much to everyone who's been checking us out. If you're not familiar with us, we welcome you. And you can keep up to date with everything we're doing on all social media channels, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, everything would be under Empress Legion. And we also have a Discord under the same name, which you're welcome to join us there and hang out and speak. It's a good time. We have a good group of people over there. And we're just really excited for the future, and we're excited to take everyone with us.
Excellent. Thank you so much for the interview. It was really great.
Thank
I had a
you.
really great time talking with you, and so it was really fun. Thank you very much.
Yes, thank you so much.